health media kind of targets pregnant women, and there can be a lot of fear with that. It's really fulfilling to be like that voice of reason, not necessarily believe everything you hear on Dr. Schmaz say, oh, you need to stand on your head for 2 hours a day or your baby's going to come out with 3 eyes or something.
Trying to figure out how to tackle aversions, how to get over that fear of weight gain, how to fuel your body for pregnancy. That really takes a lot of back and forth work. And I think it's really important to build those relationships and to feel comfortable. It just brings you close on a new level.
She's like, I just can't tell you how much better I feel, how much more confident I am in my food choices, being able to nurse my child and be at a healthy weight when I deliver. That's exactly what happened. It was really rewarding to see that the work we put in paid off in exactly the way she wanted to. Healthy baby, healthy mom, kicking ass with nursing. The ones who got into the habit of planning their days and tracking before they delivered, it's easier to just get right back into the mix of that, even with trying to balance breastfeeding and maybe going back to work after the baby's born. Be kind of the sensible, calm voice of reason, encouraging them like, you're going to get through this, you're going to have a healthy baby, and be that support person in their corner.
Welcome to Stronger You Radio with Mike Dola. Join Mike and friends as they discuss issues to keep you healthy, fit, and on track to create a stronger you. Let's listen in now.
What's up, Stronger You fam? Welcome back to another edition of Stronger You Radio. I am your host, Tanner Baze, and today we've got a really cool episode, taking a little bit of a left turn from things we've done in the past. Today we are talking all about pregnancy. For those of you listening, you can probably tell I know nothing about being pregnant, but this is where I turn it over to the experts, and I'm happy to say that we've got a bunch of them today, some of our best RDs, and this whole roundtable is going to be led by our very own Dr. Jessica Bachman. What's up, Jess?
Hi, Tanner. How you doing?
Good. Long time no talk, right?
Hey, guys. My name is Dr. Jessica Bachman. I'm going to give you a little bit about my background information, and then I'll introduce you to the 3 other RDs we have on the call as well. This is one of all of our favorite topic areas, both from personal experience as well as professional experience with Stronger You. So we're excited to be here today. So my background is that I do have my PhD in nutrition. After finishing up my schooling, I made me become both a registered dietitian as well as the training I did in research as an RD and working my PhD in that field. My research was mostly focused on weight loss. Then I worked in academia for a while, so I was an instructor at 2 different universities, and my very favorite classes to teach were on women's health and then also on life cycle. So I did a lot of instructions about pregnancy, nursing, babies. I love that whole general area of nutrition. You have such a big impact on both moms and babies. That's just a fun group to work with. I also myself have 2 kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old that clearly I was pregnant with myself, and then I also breastfed. So those topic areas are near and dear to my heart as well. So the first RD I'm going to introduce you to is Maggie. So Maggie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maggie Watson, and I've been a registered dietitian for about 10 years. I was always really interested in weight management and athletics until I myself became pregnant, and then that became my whole focus, and I just fell in love with the whole life cycle. Being pregnant was so cool, and just being able to guide people through that really became kind of an area that I really wanted to emphasize. And then nursing was awesome as well. Really cool. I had a twin pregnancy, actually. So I've got 2 kids. They're about 3.5. And I nursed both of them, which was a really interesting experience because one was an awesome little guy and my daughter had a ton of problems. So I had kind of a unique perspective there. But I've done a lot in the area of dietetics. I've kind of dabbled in a lot of things, but definitely the personal counseling has always been kind of my area of specialty.
Maggie and Katie, can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Katie Leahy, registered dietitian, diabetes educator. I have a wide variety of experience from working in corporate wellness to a hospital setting and acute care rehab, but my favorite so far, aside from Stronger You, has been in outpatient dietetics, so working with individuals of all different ages, varying health issues, and focusing on how we can address that nutritionally. Within that realm, my favorite group to work with has been women within childbearing age, including pregnancy, postpartum, even premenopause. So being able now to work with those individuals one-on-one frequently versus every 3 to 6 months has been really cool. Myself, I'm a mom of 3 girls under 5, and I do have experience breastfeeding 2 out of 3 most recently. So being able to relate to Stronger You members on a personal but also professional level is really cool.
We also have Josette on here. I want to have Josette introduce her background, professional background, tell us a little about her. And Josette in particular has a very unique experience to pull upon, discussing what she ate and how she felt while she was pregnant. And I will say that all of us are we wish that we had Stronger You when we were pregnant ourselves, because, we know we do a little bit better. Josette might have done a lot better, and you'll find out why she had Stronger You while she was pregnant. So go ahead, Josette.
Thanks, Jess. Like Jess said, my name is Josette Curtis, and I have the shortest RD background. I did several years in the Navy, so I didn't switch over to pursuing my RD till I was in my mid-30s, and this was after I'd had my son. So that ties heavily into what Jess kind of teased there a second ago. So during my time in the Navy, I spent a lot of time working out. We actually don't get very much nutrition education. So when I got out and was looking for my next career, like I said, my son was about 2.5 or 3 when I started back to school. He's now 8.5. So when I was pregnant with him, my diet was less than stellar. It was not what I would recommend anyone do, or any of my current members that I work with. I had cravings for things like Kraft mac and cheese. I would have a Coke every day, which normally I'm not a soda drinker at all. And I'm talking fully leaded Coke, not Diet Coke. So lots of sugar, not a whole lot of healthy foods. And I had no nausea. Like I didn't have a second of nausea my whole pregnancy. So I couldn't even blame it on like, oh, I can't handle protein because it turns my stomach. I could eat anything. I just gravitated towards very unhealthy choices. So for that reason, I feel like I can be understanding to pregnant moms who have those cravings or those leanings. But also I very much appreciate, and I do wish that I had a coach to guide me and say, hey, Josette, a box of Kraft mac and cheese for lunch 3 days a week is not really your best option, and give me some alternatives. Miraculously, I did not gain an excessive amount of weight during my pregnancy, but it's still rewarding to now be able to take what I've since learned as an RD, and all of us do this, and guide moms, knowing how much mom's health and nutrition affects the health of her offspring throughout their lifetime. Makes me all the more passionate about helping other moms not fall into the same traps that I fell into in my prior uneducated lifetime.
I think some of the conversations we've had about this, we're writing a blog about this as well. It'll be coming out along with this podcast, and conversations we all had that we just wish we had someone that were able to talk to us about nutrition through the pregnancy as well. And I love my OB. I love her so much, and she did her best, but in the minute or two you have in the office for all your appointments, they do weigh you. They give some feedback on how much weight you're gaining, and they'll discuss nutrition. You get a pamphlet here or there. They just don't have time. That's not their focus, is nutrition. And so working with someone who's really talking to you on a weekly basis about what your choices are, how much you're eating, how much weight you're gaining, and making sure all those things are all in line are really the benefit we see from working with a Stronger You RD throughout your pregnancy. A lot of our members have seen as well. So I'm going to ask everyone to think about describing what your experience has been working with pregnant women as a Stronger You nutrition coach. I guess some of the things that you see as, maybe let's start with some of the biggest challenges that you see your pregnant women having, and then some of the benefits you see that they gain from working with Stronger You coaches throughout the pregnancy. Katie, do you want to start on that one? Or?
Sure. Yeah. And I think some of the biggest challenges sometimes come in the first trimester with, increased nausea, vomiting, emesis, things like that. So trying to accommodate, hitting recommended nutrient, intake versus, listening to your body, what it's telling you. So kind of working with individuals, finding out what works, what doesn't, what they can tolerate, and kind of moving from there and progressing. Sometimes too, the women that I work with, this is their, second or third pregnancy. So they might have pre-existing expectations or misconceptions that, eating for 2, or I gained a bunch of weight last time, it's inevitable I'm going to have it this time. So really kind of breaking down what their challenges or perceived challenges or barriers are in the beginning, setting up some expectations, and kind of going from there. But really seeing what works, what doesn't for them as we go is super helpful.
And before we jump into something separate, let's talk a little bit about the first trimester first. I think that is something that is a struggle. And depending on the pregnancy, I had one pregnancy that was totally fine, one that I, could not eat anything but ginger ale and crackers. So what advice do you give people during the first trimester if they're experiencing some of those extreme symptoms?
I really try to, get people to understand that the first trimester is going to have these challenges, and it's not about being perfect. It's about doing the absolute best you can with what you're able to do. So if people are having trouble hitting protein, then we'll lower protein to a reasonable amount and try and accommodate some of those physical ailments that they're having. It doesn't mean it's going to last forever, but if we can get them to see that there's a light, possibly in the second trimester, or that they can get through week to week and we'll work with them, I think that's really important because, we just want them to do the best that they possibly can with what they're able to do. There's nothing magical. It's just you have to make sure that, you try and hit what you can. And if you can't do it, you don't beat yourself up about it, and you don't let it affect your entire mood, your entire day, your entire trimester. You just keep moving along and trying to progress in the best way that you can.
I'd say that speaks beautifully to Stronger You's whole philosophy, right, and eating in general. Like, we have this flexible approach. We give you these guardrails to fall within and do your best. If you go off, you make up the next day. You're not hard on yourself. We don't give you an exact meal plan. You have to eat these in every day. We don't make you feel bad if you can't do it for a week or two because you're not feeling well, right? That's really, there's a lot of flexibility in how you choose to eat and still stay healthy for your pregnancy. And so I think that's definitely very clear, especially in the first trimester. So we don't yell at you ever. Right? We know you're doing your best, and we just help to support you doing your best during that time period. So one of the comments that Katie made was about fear of weight gain. So a lot of the members we have currently that are pregnant are members that have potentially worked with us in the past to lose weight. So totally different focus. Now they come to us and they are terrified of gaining too much weight. They hear that women gain too much weight overall in the U.S. with pregnancies, which is absolutely true. So how do you help them overcome that barrier? What do you do to talk them through that process and what it's going to look like?
So what I'll usually start with, especially if it's somebody who I was working with prior to her pregnancy, and then we just roll right into, shifting our mindset from loss to maintaining and then healthy gain as the pregnancy progresses. We'll talk a lot about expectations. So, hey, here is, what BMI category you're in right now. So that dictates that this is about the recommended weight gain range that we want to see by the time you deliver. I'll let them know our strategy for how we're going to do that. In the first trimester, calorie needs don't really change at all. Unless it's a multiple pregnancy, but I haven't had any of those yet. So, and then I'll say, this is about how many calories will phase in over the course of your second trimester, over the course of your third trimester. This is how I'll be paying attention to your weight as it changes as it goes. And then I'll also say, if, like, from my own personal experience, I had from like the middle of month 6 to month 7 of my pregnancy, I didn't gain any weight. My weight did not change. And then, of course, it took off again. But, so I'll kind of say, hey, if you go a couple weeks with no gain, then we may expect to see like a big jump a couple weeks later. So just kind of letting them know what I've seen, what's normal. And fortunately for pregnancy, that normal range is pretty wide. And also I think just reassuring them like, hey, my goals are your goals. I want to get you to the end of this, 38 or 40 weeks with a very healthy mom, a very healthy baby. I'm not going to let you go off track, but let's also remember, and I'll kind of remind them at every couple check-ins, like, weight loss, unless it's a woman who is in a high BMI category to the point that her OB says it is safe for you to try to lose weight during your first trimester. But if it's a woman of a relatively healthy, normal weight range, then I'll just say, hey, we're shifting goals now. We're not trying to lose. And just kind of remembering or reminding them of that, I think, is helpful so they don't fall back into the cut mindset. Supporting and reminding them like the goals are different now. And then after you have your baby, we can set new goals.
And to piggyback on the expectations, reminding the women where the weight gain's coming from. So it's, the baby, the placenta, the amniotic fluid, breast tissue, all like the increased blood flow, and reminding them, if you have fluid or swelling in extremities, that can contribute to some, fake, or I guess, not completely real weight gain, but so just reminding them where it's coming from in addition.
Yeah. It's not just 30 pounds of fat tissue.
Knowledge is power. So we do a lot of sending out nationally produced, with resources with a good reputation, things from like national organizations. So showing women that if you do gain within the recommended amount, so for like a woman with a normal BMI starting the pregnancy, the recommendations are to gain between 25 and 35 pounds. If you gain that amount, it's estimated that you will only gain about 8 pounds of body fat. And that body fat you're gaining is actually used to support some energy needs towards the end of the pregnancy, as well as nursing after the pregnancy. And so it's fat gain that you are supposed to gain. It's purposeful. It serves a purpose. Mm-hmm. Now, if you gain beyond that, most of that additional weight will come from excess body fat. And that's where we get into issues of people being able to lose that weight afterwards. And so we are beside them the whole way, making sure they're gaining that right amount. And if they do, you're really not gaining too much body fat. So you want to gain baby, you want to gain breast tissue, right? Those are things you have to gain to support a healthy pregnancy. So giving them knowledge is the power to, help stop their fear of gaining weight during pregnancy. So you talked a lot about weight, which I would say that for most of us is really weight serves as a good marker for whether or not someone is getting adequate nutrition, right? If they're not eating enough, they're not going to gain enough weight. If they're supporting healthy growth of the baby, their weight is going to be increasing at the correct amount of weight. What are some other things you talk to your pregnant moms about? So we do monitor weight. What are some other things you'll look at? What are nutrients that you think are really important to monitor during a pregnancy?
Something that comes up for non-pregnant members as well, a lot in the group is, well, hey, my coach gave me these protein recommendations that are way over the RDA. Why is that? And so we'll, talk about how RDAs are set for kind of like basic survival mechanisms. Like what's the minimum I can eat and not get sick? But we obviously want all of our members to go way beyond just not getting sick. We want to support optimal body composition, health, et cetera. And so one of the places where that knowledge is really lacking is in protein requirements for pregnant women. The RDAs for those are also very low. And so over the course of this grad program I'm going through, we talked a good bit about how current recommendations for protein for pregnant women are lower than what some studies or what some nutrition researchers believe is adequate. And that's really because it's not ethical to do a whole lot of studies on pregnant women. Like you're not going to take one group of pregnant women and purposely underfeed them protein, because now you're setting them and their babies up for potentially a lifetime of health problems. And so it's a lot of math and formulas that are used to calculate these. But the bottom line is that's one of the things where we feel like the nationwide guidelines are actually lacking and should be increased. And so that's something else that I'll try to educate my pregnant moms on, like, hey, this is why I'm asking you to eat more protein, because there is so much growth going on, especially in the early stages. Those cells are dividing so rapidly, and your body needs to provide adequate building blocks for that baby to grow and develop. It's kind of hard because, as Maggie mentioned, it can be hard to get protein in the first trimester because so many women are averse to it. So obviously we work with that, but that's a big marker that I'll just keep an eye on. Obviously adjusting if a woman is really struggling with severe nausea and like I can't even be in the same room as chicken or I will lose my lunch. Totally get that. But just again, that gentle encouragement of, hey, as your nausea subsides, now we're going to really work on increasing that gradually but steadily throughout the rest of your pregnancy. So that's kind of one that I try to do a lot of education on and also pay attention to.
One thing that I've seen a lot of is women experiencing a lot of constipation, particularly from too much iron in their supplements. So one thing that I find myself talking a lot about is fiber intake, focusing on obviously fruits and vegetables, but also lots of soluble fiber. So I've worked with a lot of women on trying to really look at that recommendation and even exceed it. So that's something that I feel really helps the GI system. And the other thing that I really make it a point to do with all of my pregnant members is to ask them about their doctor's appointments and ask them how they're measuring, ask them, what their doctor recommendations are too, because I think it's important to kind of be cohesive and kind of have the full picture.
Also, in terms of addressing their hunger and fullness cues, we want to make sure that we stay in check with them versus trying to catch them constantly. So taking a look at, the day and, their meals, the balance, how we can kind of help curb hunger a little bit better, macro-friendly wise and conducive to their goals too.
And I would just say as far as what Stronger You RDs can and cannot do, like we don't do medical nutrition therapy, right? So we can't get in the realm of looking at blood work of pregnant women or making specific suggestions for like micronutrients. But what we can do is just, if there has been a concern, we can offer resources. We do always ask our pregnant women, we encourage them, talk to your OB, but for many women during a pregnancy, it is beneficial to be taking a prescribed multivitamin. And that's just kind of a safety blanket to make sure you're getting all the needs you have. Needs for things like iron are increased during pregnancy. And so again, to make sure you're hitting that minimum, a lot of times we will suggest they talk to their OB. We won't give specific suggestions to take this amount or anything like that because you need more clinical data to be able to do that we don't have access to and do not want to have access to. We can't with our role in Stronger You. But we definitely support recommendations that come from the OB, from other doctors, to help women get there as well. Okay, so that's some of the nutrition, the nutrients that we're tracking during pregnancy. From just more of a personal standpoint with working with women, what are some of your favorite parts about working with pregnant women? Whether it's, if you can think of one that you really had, one woman in particular you had a lot of impact with or built a relationship with, what's some of the joys you see with working with pregnant women? Maggie, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, sure. I pretty much love everything about it from the very beginning to the very end. Seeing those baby pictures has probably got to be my favorite thing in the world. I love just having a random text, hey, had my baby, check this out. It's amazing to see, all the work and the progress that you put in with these, wonderful women. To see that end product is just fascinating. But really, the process of going through the ups and downs of a pregnancy really brings you close together. I mean, there's so much cohesive work that you do together, trying to figure out how to tackle aversions, how to get over that fear of weight gain, how to, basically fuel your body for a pregnancy. That really takes a lot of back and forth work. And I think it's really important to build those relationships and to feel comfortable with each member. And it just brings you close on a new level.
I just got one of those baby pictures this Sunday, so that is always fun. And to see kind of the mom, even, during pregnancy, it can be a very overwhelming time and a lot of constant changing things. So for them to feel empowered and the control back in their seat in terms of food decisions and what can best fuel them and baby throughout the day until delivery is just a really neat thing. So I think just the women feeling more empowered during pregnancy and more prepared and more confident postpartum. They have a lot of the basics and foundation in place and just ready to put it to play.
Yeah, I think one of my favorites was a woman that I started working with just about a year ago. She was had just found out she was pregnant with her second. She freely admitted, during her first, it was just, eating for two, starting from day one. And she had worked hard to lose the baby weight. And so, like we've talked about, was very concerned about the second time around. So we started working together. She had her baby in, I think it was September. And just the whole time, she's like, I just can't tell you how much better I feel, how much more confident I am in my food choices and, being able to nurse my child and be at a healthy weight when I deliver. And, that's exactly what happened. So it was really rewarding to see that the work we put in paid off in exactly the way she wanted to. Healthy baby, healthy mom, kicking ass with nursing. So, and then the other thing I think is, I think we'd all agree that the greater health media kind of praise or targets pregnant women. And there can be a lot of fear with that. So I think it's really fulfilling to be that voice of reason, to not necessarily believe everything you hear on Dr. Schmaz or some websites that will say, oh, you need to take all these crazy supplements or do these, stand on your head for 2 hours a day or your baby's going to come out with 3 eyes or something. And just be kind of the sensible, calm voice of reason, encouraging them you're doing your best, you're going to get through this, you're going to have a healthy baby, and be that support person in their corner.
I think we're able to help reduce stress. Or food is so important, and people talk so much about weight gain and how much you should eat and what you shouldn't eat, what you should do and shouldn't do. That if we're there supporting them, we talk to these women at least weekly, if not more than once per week, to support them, and they get to reduce that stress. And they're just okay, I know I'm doing the right thing. I can just relax about this one thing in my life, even though everything else is crazy because I'm pregnant and that's a wild time period and my hormones are all making me think crazy stuff. We're there to help support them, say, no, you're doing a great job. This thing is great. It's right on track. So you're doing really, really well done. And the baby pictures afterwards, let's just talk a little bit about postpartum. So a lot of our women, they will work with us throughout their entire pregnancy, and a lot do stay on and come back and work with us again postpartum. So let's go back to Josette first. Can you talk a little bit about when women typically come back to work with a Stronger You RD postpartum? How many weeks afterwards? When you suggest that they start working with us again?
I've had women literally not even take a week off after delivery. And then I've had women say, hey, I'm going to need just give me a month, give me 2 weeks, 6 weeks. And I tend to be very liberal with that just because I know how much I struggled after my son was born. And so I try to say, hey, I'm not going to put restrictions on you and say you have to come back by this time. If she has a delivery or multiple kids, now she's trying to learn how to balance another baby. And I find that generally a month is probably about the longest most women go before coming back becomes like a real struggle to just get back in the habit of things. But yeah, I mean, it's just as rewarding as someone who struggled with breastfeeding myself, it's just as rewarding to be able to support moms through that. And I find that the ones who got into the habit of planning their days and tracking before they delivered, it's easier to just get right back into the mix of that, even with trying to balance breastfeeding and maybe going back to work at some point, after the baby's born. So that would be kind of my take on it.
Katie, can you give us your perspective about like timing and kind of what you work with women, especially as one of the RDs in the team who most recently had a baby themselves?
Yes. I would say anywhere from, I mostly see at least a month. I've had a few come back around 8 weeks, 10 weeks, depending upon what's going on. Sometimes if a baby's in the NICU or something like that, they want to take a little extra time. But they're ready to jump back into the swing of things. I think oftentimes in the 4th trimester, the focus is on the baby, and coming back to Stronger You, working with someone one-on-one that's checking in on you often is really helpful, and the support that I liked at that time. And so I worked with Maggie as a coach during my postpartum, and it was really helpful to just key reminders of, okay, I got to focus on myself for a second, which ultimately helps everyone else around them. So just fueling with food a little bit more, paying a little bit closer attention for, maxing out energy, helping supply with breast milk has been really beneficial.
Maggie, could you follow up on that a little bit with what we do with working with women who are breastfeeding?
Yep. When I have somebody come back, I typically ask them to track for a few days without any sort of goals from me, just to kind of see where they're at in terms of caloric intake to support that breast milk that they're, making. And then I kind of run my numbers and take sort of a midpoint as to where we should start them. And really just focus on, making sure that they have all of the adequate nutrition that they need, making sure their supply is fully established, and then slowly starting to kind of chip away and, not shock their body with these big, huge decreases. That's kind of my strategy, and it's worked really, really well. I feel like people are able to, get a good foundation and feel comfortable, like they're not going to just shock their supply if we take them down at kind of a slow rate. So it makes sense. It allows, the focus to stay on, healthy foods in a good quantity, and then just slowly scaling it back a little bit to get them to their desired goal, but also to make sure that we're supporting full supply of breast milk.
Yeah, it's really important. Of course, women after a pregnancy a lot of us want to get, quote unquote, our bodies back, right? That's something we want to get back down to our pre-pregnancy weight or have these ideals. But we also want to make sure that we're consuming adequate food to be able to nurse our babies for those that choose to do that. And that's something that we're going to RD, we will ask every week, how's supply? Are you having any issues? Text me immediately if there's any concerns about that. As RDs, we know that a lot of times those short-term supply issues are probably more related to hydration versus nutrient intake, but we still take all concerns, into consideration. We recommend they talk to lactation consultants if there are really big problems coming on, but that is an important part of kind of our decisions for how we're moving through the progress of weight loss postpartum is how milk supply is, how things are going. So again, same thing, Maggie, really conservative about the drop in calories because milk supply is going to be the number one thing we're going to support for moms that choose to breastfeed, along with supporting slow, steady weight loss over time.
And can we mention, as a Stronger You member, we do have a pregnant mom and postpartum Facebook group as well that you can be a part of for additional support and questions, and easy to relate to other members as well as coaches.
Yeah, thank you for suggesting that too. Yeah, so definitely join us in that group. Of course, a lot of nutrition and weight talk, but a lot of what's your recommendation for a car seat too. So we get some of that stuff in that group as well. So it's a fun, nice group for our community to be available.
Well, I can certainly say that I feel like I learned a lot. Obviously on the coaching side of things, I feel like I'm mildly versed in some of these things to know and to look out for and to pay attention to, but it's just fascinating to hear all of you share your own experiences and how those relate back to the members that you do work with. Especially just because the thing that has become apparent to me, even just listening to y'all talk, is that this world of eating while pregnant and taking care of yourself during pregnancy is just as rife with misinformation as the normal weight loss world. And that's a kind of a mind-blowing thing to think about, because you would expect and you would hope that we have this thing figured out, and clearly not.
Yeah, I mean, in the U.S., just to throw out some stats out there, as far as what people are eating, what they should be doing, only 32% of women in the U.S. actually gain within the recommended range of weight. 48% gain more than they're supposed to during pregnancy. 21% gain less. So, it's whether it's lack of information. I think there is probably some misinformation, but it's also the same struggles with the food environment that people have. And that old term about eating for two, I remember talking to my OB because she actually loved nutrition. So she would ask me a lot because I was already an RD when I was pregnant. And she's like, so people really only get to eat half an extra bagel when they're pregnant? And I'm like, yeah, it's not that many extra calories. People think it's tons more. Now, when you're nursing, we estimate about 500 extra calories. So that's actually a little small meal extra, but even that is not that much more. And so there is definitely misinformation. And there's also just the same challenges that all of us have with maintaining your weight even when you're not pregnant.
This just came to me, but how much does that number change during someone's pregnancy if they're carrying twins or triplets?
Well, I was a twin mom, and my doctor was actually very adamant that I gained 60 pounds and 30 by halfway point. So when she told me that, I kind of freaked out. It was a big day for me anyways, because I found out that I was having twins, and I was like, oh my God, I'm shocked. And then she's like, gain 60 pounds. And of course, there's me going what is happening right now? So I did. I gained 60 pounds on the nose, and I lost it all in 4 months. So she was right on. And I had a perfectly healthy pregnancy. I delivered at 37 weeks and 0 days. And I found this out later, but the gestational weight for age at that point was each baby was supposed to be 5 pounds, 14 ounces. And they were born at 5'13" and 5'13" and 5'15". So yeah, 1 ounce off each. Mama. It was pretty amazing. But it's just crazy what the body can do. It's amazing.
That's fascinating to hear. You were told to gain 60 pounds and you did it on the nose. For every client listening, that is a picture-perfect example of adherence.
But you know what? Here's what I'll tell you. It's so crazy because by the halfway point, I was supposed to gain 30 and I only gained 17. My doctor was all over me. And, the second half of pregnancy, it was okay, here we go. I'm just going to keep gaining and gaining. And I think a lot of it was water at the end. But, probably week 20 to 25, I bet I gained 10 pounds, and it was baby. It was incredible. So, again, it's not a linear process all the time, and that was something that I really struggled with, was I wanted to be perfect, obviously, like every type A person. But, it didn't go exactly as planned, but I got there in the end, and everything was healthy. And it was just a lot of, consistently figuring out that okay, I have to maybe eat a little bit more, even though I can't be in the same room as chicken, as Josette mentioned. Yep, that was me. It was disgusting. But yeah, you take the challenges along the way and you just kind of figure out how to make it all work.
I love your comment about not being linear too, because that's a thing that a lot of people do hear, you should gain 25 to 35 pounds. They hear that. So first trimester, those who aren't super nauseous start eating more food than they need to if they're not working with an RD. And so then 13 weeks in, they're like, oh, I'm up 10 pounds. You're not gaining that much baby the first trimester. The baby weighs as much as a paper clip 8 weeks in. So you're not gaining other tissue too much. You are building up your uterus a little bit. There is some breast tissue. There is most of it's increase in blood the first half of the pregnancy. So if you gain fast in the beginning, a lot of that is going to be excess body fat. That is what you're gaining. And so, but people don't know that. You're really supposed to gain anywhere from 0 to 5 pounds the whole first trimester. It's really not until after after 20, the whole second half is when weight gain really starts to increase. So there's confusion out there. People know 25 to 35 pounds, but the fact that really shouldn't start happening until the second half of the pregnancy is not as well known. So very interesting. Lots of details that we work with our members with, for sure.
I think that this is just a fascinating thing to learn about, but it's even more fascinating to hear because you're sharing your own experiences. And I think those not only help myself learn, but I think they help anyone that's listening relate more closely, right? And kind of sheds light on everything that does go on and what you should pay attention to and what you should look out for. So seriously, thank you all. This was awesome. We're about to wrap this baby up, but that was a pun. Is there anything else that y'all can think of that you want to add as like a parting piece of wisdom for anybody that may not have been covered?
I would say let us reduce the stress of having to worry about your food intake. There's so many other stressful things like setting up a baby room and your registry and, grandparents and all the other things you have to think about, like working with an RD that can just help you focus. Let us worry about your weight gain. Let us worry about your food intake and help guide you along the way and just help reduce stress overall during a stressful time period.
To that point, I think there's like very real value in like outsourcing responsibilities, right? And anything you can do to clear up mental bandwidth, that's a good decision, inevitably. So listen to Doc Bach. Well, seriously, Maggie, Josette, Katie, Jess, you're all wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on here. We've talked about like making this happen for a while now, and I'm really, really glad that we finally got it down. And I think people are going to love it. I think this is immensely valuable to so many different people. So thank you. Well, SUers, that's it for today. Keep your ears peeled next week. We'll have a brand new episode dropping. And if you've got any questions or anything at all related to this, pop into the group and ask away. Clearly, you've got a lot of very educated people here who are more than happy to help you every step of the way. Ladies, thank you so much. Thank you for jumping on here. I appreciate it.
Yo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanner.
Stronger You Radio is a broadcast wellness production powered by StrongerYouFit.com. Content copyright Stronger You. Executive producer Frank Sardella. Thanks for listening to Stronger You Radio. For more information on the podcast, visit StrongerYouPodcast.com.